we're recording. So, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good morning, wherever you are. Thank you very much and welcome back to the Think2Thrive podcast. I'm Adrian, your host, and today with me, I am absolutely blessed to have Tara Pilling with me. Tara is a PG consultant and the CEO of Diamond Mind Consulting. She's a mom, a husband, and living in Canada. And according to her bio on the website, she loves everything to do with outdoors. So we have that in common. Tara, thank you very much again. You're very, very welcome. And please maybe introduce yourself a little bit to the listeners.
Thanks for having me, Adrian. We were having just a great, even conversation before this, and I just feel just so honored to be here with you on your podcast and to be sharing with anybody who is ready to make some leaps and some transformations in their life and mindset. So a little bit about me. What else could I add to that? Well, I was thinking about that. I've spent over 30 years in energy and vibrational medicine. That's kind of my background. My original training was in physical therapy. And through the tragic loss of my mother, unfortunately, when I was 21 in a house fire, it kind of got me looking at other ways of healing, looking at more holistic and vibrational. I'm loving New German medicine right now, and I'm diving into a lot of New German medicine. And I got sick. Stress is horrible. It's a horrible thing. It does a number on our minds and on our bodies. So, the cancer thing came up. And so I started looking at more natural ways to heal my body. And I also moved into studying and practicing and then becoming a teacher in yoga and meditation as well. So I'm a senior teacher of over 18 years, stepped away from that during COVID. And I just knew, like, even in my energy work and when clients would come to me to have a session or whatever it was, that it just seemed to be around coaching and kind of mentorship. So I started seeking out some of the best mentors in my eyes. I really loved Tony Robbins at the time. So I had spent 3 years traveling around the world with Tony Robbins and doing a lot of his training, and Robin Sharma, who wrote The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, and, kind of got connected. And then, of course, here I am. I was flying back actually from Fiji. It was a private event with Tony and Life Wealth Mastery. There was just 100 of us. And I know you're going to Australia, and there was a lot of Australians there because it's so close to Fiji. And I came back and was flying back. And one of my first clients, she's a movie director and an actress. She had said, I did a healing session, because everybody called me the doctor on the retreat, because Tony put you on a 10-day cleanse. So people were not feeling so good. And she said, you need to talk to Bob Proctor. You are so, like, everything you do is so much like Bob Proctor. And I remember Bob from The Secret. And I was home just a couple weeks. And like usual, I was up, came down. And then, of course, there's no coincidence that Bob called me. I thought I was being punked. And the rest is kind of history. I just decided that I remember Bob said, it's not working your way. And I remember thinking, yeah, I've spent all this time. I have all this training, all these certificates, and there's something I'm missing. And that's how I came into this material, because I just knew it was like spirit was talking to me, like, yeah, there is something missing. How can I be the most educated, knowledgeable person spending all this time with all these amazing people, but I'm not getting the results I wanted? And I was just in Fiji with, like, there was Deepak Chopra and Tony and Warren Buffett. And it was like, I am missing something here. What am I missing? So I was praying. So,
yeah. So Bob just rang you out of the blue. How did he get your number?
What happened was, well, there's no coincidence. Because my client, Serena Jindal, she was talking about it. I just started, I do think these products are listening, because I started like just kind of doing some research on Bob because I knew, and I'd watched The Secret when it first came out. Of course, I mean, my background was all energy and vibrational medicine. So it all aligned with, like I studied the biology of belief, Dr. Bruce Lipton, and I dove into Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. But I just started doing some research. Yeah. And then the company of course called me, and then Bob got on the phone with me. And I was like, because I was, I remember at that point, because I had spent a lot of time and a lot of money on personal development. Like you can imagine, I was with Tony Robbins traveling all over. Like I'd been all over. And I remember being like, I'm not spending any more money. Like it's just not working. Like I've spent like probably $100,000. Like I'm not spending any more money. This has costed a lot. But I remember thinking like I must be seriously flawed. Like there has to be some serious flaws here. And I just thought, I think a lot of people feel that way. I think a lot of probably the listeners feel that way. I just thought I just got the shittiest genetics. Like it just must be that like God, he just missed out, right? Like he missed on me. Like there was something he did not program in me that other people are more lucky. And this is just kind of my cross to bear. Like I literally felt that way. And then there's no coincidence because I just started thinking, I mean, it's the way the law of attraction works too. I just started like doing a little research. And then of course it's like, then all of a sudden I'm talking to Bob, and I really knew at that point, Adrian, thank goodness, I knew that there was no coincidence. I mean, I'd studied consciousness for years, even in body talk and specialized kinesiology. I knew that there's no such thing as a coincidence, that consciousness is always, around. And I'd been praying, and I remember praying like, there has to be another way. Like, what am I missing here? I knew that everything I had done up to that point was perfect because it definitely, like, I was surviving. Many people in my family did not survive. I've outlived my parents, unfortunately, right? So I knew that I was surviving, but I wasn't thriving. I love that word, thrive. So, and I was praying to God, like, what am I missing here? And so there's no coincidence that I received that phone call, and I'll never forget. And I just, I remember thinking, well, this is awesome, but I've been down this road many times, and it's just probably not going to work, or I'm just going to stay stuck in this space. And I just remember Bob saying, it's not working your way. And I can show you a way that works every time with every person if you can be coachable. And I remember thinking, maybe there is something he knows that I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a question that got asked to me at one stage as well, Tara, and that really made me pause for thought and go, do you know what? You're absolutely right. I've been doing it my way, and it's not working. Your the consultant that went through Thinking into Results with originally was one of the Inner Circle consultants, Ava, and it's like, she's super successful. Her way is working. My way is not working. So I better listen to this lady, and I better listen to what the message that she's trying to get across to me that comes from Bob, etc. Because it's definitely working for Bob, and it's definitely working for Ava. If it can work for them, it can work for me.
Exactly. And I think you just kind of, like, for me, and of course, my most challenging, like the things I was dealing with that were the most challenging at the time was definitely my relationship. And I remember my husband was on the opposite couch, and he'd always say that you cost more than you made. And he was right. And I think that's why it frustrated me. And I remember when I got that phone call, and I actually said, I'm good. I was very resistant. But there was something inside of me that kept nudging me. Even when I got off the phone, I was like, there is something I'm missing. I just don't get it. And all those years with Tony, I mean, I understood the strategies. I understood, how to do certain practices. I mean, I knew how to change my state. Tony Robbins always talks about living in a beautiful state. So I created a certain level of success for sure. And I'm so grateful because of Tony. Again, I was still moving forward. I was progressing, and that's really important. But it was like, I just felt like I should be so much further ahead. And I didn't understand it. That was a game changer for me when I did say yes. And it was super scary because I'd never invested in something kind of like this. Like this was a little bit different. It was like, learning in the format that we teach, the science-based recipe. Even Tony didn't have that. It was kind of, if anything, I was on information overload. And I had gathered a lot of really great information, but it was not. And you understand this because when you're thinking into results, it's got to be in the subconscious mind. Our results is just a reflection of what's going on in the subconscious mind. So it was a mentorship and a training I'd never done before. And I just knew that's why when I meet up with people, I always say, just, yes, we want them to move forward, but I say, just go inside. Like, if money wasn't an issue, would you do this just to connect to spirit? And that's what I did. And I knew, again, we don't buy things that we need. We buy things we really want. And I really wanted to be, successful. I wanted to make that impact. And a lot of people outside of me, Adrian, would have said, oh, she's so intelligent and she's so successful. But I can tell you, when you looked at my bank account, I wasn't that successful. It was more like the poser. I really felt more like a poser. And like that's the imposter syndrome kind of, and all the other syndromes that kind of go along with that. So it was a real notch against my self-esteem and my self-confidence. And I just knew I had to do something. I was like, if I don't do something, and I was just so in overwhelm, just information overwhelm. Truly, I didn't have a system. I didn't have something, and that's what I loved about Bob's work. Even as I came in, is that I remember Bob saying that we got to simplify things, and we've got to make it so that a 10-year-old could understand it. And that was really attractive to me because I was, I'm also trained in Chinese medicine and specialized kinesthetic. I had all this training. I was like, I need something that's simple, that I can apply, that's going to get results, right? And that's, this is what we lead in, is thinking into results.
Yeah, well, when you talk about something so simple that a 10-year-old can understand, I was on, somebody shared a recording with me from a pediatric consultant in Germany, and her son, who I reckon is about 12, maybe 13, hosted and explained leaving people, lesson 11, leaving people with the impression of increase. So to have somebody that young understand it, because as Bob always says, you can't fully understand something until you can explain it to somebody so that they understand it. And he was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And that is the one thing for me that drew me to Bob and the PGI more than anything else, is the simplicity. There's one thing that I find an awful lot of people is they try to overcomplicate things, to come across as being super intellectual or super highfalutin, as we say in Ireland. But for me, it's the KISS principle. Just keep it simple. Yeah, the more people who are able to understand information, because understanding is the key for me. Even a little bit of an understanding is the key to having a lasting change or a lasting success, let's say. Yeah. And it's interesting for me to
say how, like, you can be a walking encyclopedia of information. I mean, right now I've noticed that I attract a lot of doctors and teachers that are moving more towards a holistic system instead of programming. There's this kind of sovereignty approach now, and it's like you can have all the information. You can be that walking encyclopedia and be really intelligent, but are you making a difference on this planet? And, I think that's what it really comes down to is, being, making that difference and leading and keeping it really simple.
Yeah.
I'm so, my apologies. I can hear the air thing just turned on. So hopefully it's not too loud.
Oh, you're grand. I heard it there a second ago. It's okay. Something
Hey, I
that's very
should
curious.
share though, my son, so after studying and leading and him hearing Bob so many times and trainings and different things that we were doing, my son started studying this when he was 11. And I remember he came up to me in the kitchen and he said, Mom, I got some big goals. I better start studying with you. And I'd asked Bob about this. And I
Mhm.
remember Bob saying, well, the material was created so that a 10-year-old could understand it. So we don't tell our kids what to do. So to have a teenage boy that was like, Mom, I need to start studying with you. So my son has
Mm.
gone through the Thinking into Results material 3 times and lead the field twice.
Wow. Wow. Can you imagine what sort of what's the word, a head start that he's going to have on his peers by the time he gets to the end of high school, into college, etc. If that's what he decides to do, just that mindset that he's going to have is just phenomenal. I think that's interesting, Tara, because you've worked with what I would consider probably to be two of the premier people in the personal development or business sort of development space, Bob and Tony, and they're poles apart in how they get the message across. In my opinion, what do you think?
You know, I think everybody needs a little Tony Robbins. Like I love Tony because I think that again, comfort and complacency is the enemy. I think as humans, I really believe this, and this is no judgment or insult to anybody, but we've become lazy on this planet. And I think that Tony Robbins gets you moving. It's like all about state. It's around get your butt off the couch, get moving, doing something. There's a lot of physiology in Tony's work. Now that I've gone back into some of my training with Tony, and I just love Tony, he's larger than life. Once you're thinking into results and you've studied this material with Bob, you definitely can pick out the things that Tony's trying to get across and go deeper. But I think everybody needs a little Tony, and I definitely needed that. I needed that shock factor, right? I needed to just have someone that got my attention. I think with what separates them in my own experience, Adrian, is that the whole idea around the paradigm shift and the way that the mind works, the conscious and the subconscious. This is something Tony doesn't get into, and it was definitely that missing piece for me. I didn't understand how my mind worked. I didn't understand that no matter what I did, there was a paradigm getting in the way, that there was this genetic and environmental programming, and that can be really frustrating. That's where I just, even before that conversation with Bob, I just felt like giving up, because I was like, am I the most screwed up person on this planet? Do I just have the shittiest genes? Like my family came from the war in Germany. I mean, and I got the Irish and the Austrian. It was very chaotic. A lot of addiction. Unfortunately, it's how I lost my parents. It was just trauma. It was trauma, really. And when I came into the work with Bob, I finally understood how my mind worked. I finally understood that there was this genetic and environmental programming, and that if I wanted to get better results, I had to understand my mind. And you were discussing this, right? I mean, success is truly 98% the mindset, and it's only 2% the strategy. So it's like, and this is what it's kind of been a mantra this last year, is there's no causes other than your own state of consciousness. This is really like, it's an inside job, and we've got to get the understanding around how our mind works, how that genetic and environmental programming holds us back. But we can think, and it all starts with a thought, and we can have those paradigm shifts. Now, this is where everything in my life changed, and in my business, was when I started studying this material and studying with Bob. But also, you just mentioned, like, as we get later into the lessons, like, I also realized that in many ways I wasn't an intelligent student. I had to become an intelligent student if I wanted to be a phenomenal leader. So when I came into this material with Bob, of course, there was a lot of emotional impact. I'd spent a lot of money. It was kind of like do or die. It was like, I don't care if Bob asks me to do jumping jacks, like, I'm going to do freaking jumping jacks. And I finally realized I had to get out of my own way. And I would have considered myself a really great student, even with Tony's work, but it was like a whole new level of how I was going to move forward in just even studying. And we know that, intelligent students become phenomenal leaders, and phenomenal leaders know when to lead and they know when to follow. I had done so much leadership training. I did leadership training with Robin Sharma. He leads the Titan program. It's amazing. I done leadership training with Tony Robbins. I did the whole leadership university training with Tony Robbins. And then I come and I study with Bob, and I realized, holy crap, I don't really understand leadership the way that I need to. And that's a thing, again, Adrian, that I think that Bob does so well in his material, is just keeping everything so simple, but in a way that you understand that it is, it's those paradigms. It's the genetic and environmental paradigms that are stopping you. And you've got to, like, on a deep, deep emotional level, because that's a subconscious mind, understand how that works. And if you, and I really firmly believe there's no better time to lead on this planet than now. But I think this is the thing. Everybody's looking for something outside of them. And I was doing the same. I was hoping that, maybe my partner would lead, or the government would lead, or someone would lead, not recognizing that the leader truly I was looking for was me. But I had to start living from within, and I had to become, all those things I learned. I had to become, a real leader. And that was a game changer for me. And there's so many differences between them. And although I still love Tony's work, I almost feel like everybody needs a little Tony. But if you want to really, truly create quantum leaps in your life and transform, that's Thrive and Transform. It was like, I'd studied psychology. I almost became a psychologist. That was my first, like, what I wanted to go into. And I worked with brain injury, and I worked with spinal cord and physical therapy. So I had a really vast understanding of the mind and in psychology. But again, it was the way that Bob, mentors and had taught the material that it clicked. And because I think I was getting lost in how complicated everything seemed. And that's one thing, even attracting medical doctors, psychologists, is that the way that we teach this material is not something you learn in university, or you learn by doing a training program. You can apply that later, but it was really keeping it simple and understanding. It's kind of like, in school, like, if you don't understand some of the basic math, how, I was driving my son to his, they're doing all these advanced classes now in physics and stuff like that. Well, if you don't have a basic understanding of how your mind works and how you're programmed, we're all programmed. We're all a product of a product. If you don't have an understanding and an awareness and tools to work with that programming, how are you going to do the, all the physics and all the more complicated stuff? So for me now, going back, it's a game changer. It really is.
Yeah. That's you've done so much there. But there's a couple of pieces that I really love. The last bit that you said about the toolkit, okay, because that's exactly how I described it to others, is that I now understand. So I'm a firm believer understanding is the key to change. And I have a mental toolkit to help me to understand that what's happening. You mentioned when you were talking there, a paradigm. I understand what a paradigm is. I didn't understand anything whatsoever to do with a paradigm before studying this. So in your simplest terms, Tara, could you explain to the listeners what is a paradigm?
Yeah, I didn't understand. I'd never even heard. I'd heard the word, but like Bob would say, most people don't really truly understand. A paradigm is just, like, the way I look at it is a paradigm is just a multitude of habits. Our results is just a reflection of our habit nature. So a paradigm is that it's a multitude of habits. It's our conditioning. It's our patterning. It's our addictions. It's our self-image, it's our belief systems, it's all of that wrapped up. And, really it's that mental subconscious programming. It's the genetic and environmental programming again. And we've got to shift it. And we can. That's the great news. Because I think some of us, you know, you get to a point and you think, gosh, am I just, because this is the cards I was dealt? You know, is this what I have to deal with the rest of my life? But I've seen in myself, even in clients, shift patterns of disease that have been in their families, patterns of addiction that have been in their families, and trauma. I've seen them shift that. That's the paradigm shift. You know, you are not a victim of your genetics and of your circumstances. It really, truly all starts with a thought. And when you start to harmonize with law, because I mean, the laws are always working. It's an interesting time on this planet, though, Adrian, because we're trying to take law out of it. You know, I'm trained in the laws of mankind, even. It was like another word for law is Lord, law or love, you know, and it's like the laws work their own way. They don't work your way. They don't work my way. I always use the example of just gravity, right? If I was to take this, there's a law of gravity. Guess what? If I drop it every time, and the law does not work my way. And so this is what humans are, you know, again, walking in their path backwards. And we see that on the planet right now, is thinking, well, we're just going to be God, or we're going to be law. But the thing is these laws, they govern us. We have to learn how to work with these laws and respect the law. Again, don't climb up to the roof of your house. Again, you might think you're God or you're the law, but guess what? Every time you will fall. This pin will fall every time, because the law of gravity. And we have all these laws that govern us. There's a law. There's the laws around your mind. There's a law around thinking. Thoughts are things, but you've got to harmonize your mind with these laws, and you've got to recognize that there's certain agreements maybe that you made in programming and patterning that's been generational, that you got to take a look at. And for me, Adrian, I know that I just got to a point, and I think I was so sick and tired. I was just so sick and tired of being sick and tired that I was like, you know what, the buck stops here. It's just, and you know, you might be that person, you know, the listener, like you might be that person that's going to heal generational programming and trauma. And that's like, that is, I just really feel like probably why I've been a seeker and why I've done so much training, is because like I just knew it's something inside of me that the buck really needs to stop here. And it's not on anyone else. It's not on anything outside of me, but it had to happen in here. And I see how I'm transforming that even in my own kids. And it is amazing. It is absolutely amazing when you realize that you have the power, and you had the power all along, but it was inside of you. That's why I always say it's an inside job. You know, most of us as humans are looking outside, or again, or we're thinking that we're God, or you know, or we're just thinking we got a shitty hand. Well, the power is inside of you. You just got to discover it, and then you've got to harmonize with that power, right? So
what was the quote? The other quote that I really like, because it's by an Irish author, George Bernard Shaw. So people who don't succeed always blame circumstances. Those who succeed, if they can't find the circumstances looking for, they go out and they make them. And I thought that's one, obviously being an Irish author, even though he spent most of his life in England, give him that. But being an Irish author,
I didn't know he was an Irish author, but I love that quote too. And I think that, you know, because when you look at some of the most successful people and you look at leaders on this planet, it's not like they were given a silver platter. I mean, there was adversity, there was struggle, there was really tough times. And I think that, again, our creator, whatever you call God, Allah, Krishna, I don't care what you call that, but I think that, you know, the more difficult the path, the more the opportunity. And so I also see it as a personal responsibility to step into that and to do the work. And I think that this is where, going back to, I think humans have become quite lazy. I mean, we don't even need to get up to change the TV channel anymore. And everything is so instant. We've got instant everything. I've done some training too because of Tony with the Navy SEALs and, you know, David Goggins. And like, I don't agree with everything, but I do like them because I think like everybody too needs a little David Goggins, because we've become completely lazy, compliant, you know, dependent. We don't even know how to think for ourselves. And I think it's so important that we that's taking back your power and realizing it's on you. And I think that's like one of the first steps in creating better results, is realizing that you are 100% responsible for the life and result that you're getting.
I'm sure this is a book that you've read. In fact, I even without knowing you very well, I can tell you exactly it's a book that you've read, Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got mine here.
Sitting on my desk, and I opened it at random earlier on before the call here. I read probably a page a week or something like this, but here's the page that opened up for me earlier on. There are no limitations to the mind except as we acknowledge. Both poverty and riches are the offspring of thought.
I love that.
Yeah. And who controls our thoughts? We control our thoughts. And that was the biggest thing for me, or one of the biggest things that I came across, or that I learned, the difference between the conscious and the subconscious mind, and the ability that you have in your conscious mind to reject thoughts. And a light bulb went off in my head when I heard that, and I was like, I want every child in the world to know that, because all the children who are bullied or who lose their self-confidence, we're born with amazing self-confidence. We have no inhibitions. We have no doubts about our abilities whatsoever. If we want to do something, we just keep doing it until we get it. But throughout our childhood, we lose it. So I always thought that I want to help every single child in the world to understand that you have the ability to reject thoughts or things that people say to you that you don't believe or that you don't want to believe. You can just say, I don't believe that. But what happens, unfortunately, most of the time is that a lot of people do believe them and internalize them. And that's what forms part of that subconscious programming, those paradigms that we were talking about. So yeah.
And in that space, it's so easy to think that you are, you know what I mean, that you're just a plaything, or you're a victim of, you know, what's been given to you again. But it's so empowering to know that through the conscious mind, you can accept, reject, or originate a new idea. But this is where it's like, well, we're also only thinking 2 to 4% of the time. So, you know, again, it's just having the basic foundation and understanding, but it, you know, even like in studying this material, I've been here for 7 years. And I study this material every day. I remember Bob saying he spent, 60 years studying every day. And, paradigms, that's why we refer to them as the devil. They're so strong. So it's like, it's kind of like if you want to be in the best shape of your life, well, you got to get educated. And you can't just do it for 6 months. You can't just do it for a couple of years and be like, oh, I'm in the best shape of my life. No, it's a continuous practice. That's why I say as humans that thrive and are leading are in growth mindset. They're constantly growing, and it's the repetition of a really good idea. Because I know for me, Adrian, I had so much training. I'm one of those, how girls are with shoes, I'm that way with books. I had so many books. And I think that a lot of people on this planet right now are just gathering information. They're on information overload, but we're really starving for wisdom. We're starving for that knowledge. And it is about getting back to our nature. For me, even when I look at the diet and fitness, I think it's about, yes, it's $1 billion industry. You can take a pill for everything. We know a pill is not fixing the problem. There's every kind of diet. And then they switch right now. No, now it's like, no, we're going to go back to the meat, the Atkins thing. Everything switches. But for me, I'm always like, keep it simple. Go back to the basics. Have that foundation. It's all about eat as close to the earth as possible. Keep, the ancestral, move your body. Like, I think the answers are quite simple. But humans, we overcomplicate it. And we're at this time where we're just expecting things to magically shift. But we got to do the work, right? And it's a process of every day making that commitment to just do a little better.
It's almost as if we think to ourselves, if we are thinking, it can't be that simple. It has to be more complicated than that. Because when you were saying earlier on about, thinking, oh no, maybe I just got dealt a shitty hand and that's it. I've become all that I'm supposed to become and I'm not destined for it, etc. There's no such thing as destiny. But I remember personally being very much in the same mindset, Tara, as what you explained there. And go, well, you know what? Maybe I should just settle. Yeah, maybe I should just, put those thoughts of success out of my mind. You got kids, you got a mortgage, you got all these sort of things going on. Just settle. You're comfortable. Just stay where you are. Yeah, and that lasted about 6 months.
I went that was like me too. I think even when I got my job in physio and at the hospital, and I got my dream job in union, it was like if I never see another hip replacement, I am so okay with that. I'm just saying and I think so many humans, it's kind of like a samskara. They get kind of caught up in that. And it's like a cycle of you wake up, you go to work, you come home, maybe you watch your show, you eat and you go to bed. That to me, it's like this, we're here to grow. We're here to expand. We're here to bring more of ourselves to the world. And so if we're not growing and moving forward, we're going backwards and we're slowly dying. And I think a lot of people are stuck in this. Although if that's what you love and you're destined to be, let's say, work in a certain job, that's great. But you want to constantly be growing and not just settle. I think that place of settling, and just in my own experience of what you're sharing, is there's something inside of you that just knows that there's so much more you're capable of, whatever it is, whether it is working in physio or as a doctor or as a mindset coach or someone who's cleaning up the streets. I don't care. I think that there's something inside of us that's nudging us to grow, to leave a legacy, to make a bigger impact. I really just feel like it's just a natural, ingrained, part of us. And when we don't listen to that, I think we feel stuck. We get bored. We get sick. I think that's why there's so much sickness and disease. And, there's a statistic, because I'm from North America, there's a statistic that says that, something like 75% of people go to work hating their jobs and at the same time praying they don't get fired. No wonder we're sick.
That's so sad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy.
So sad
when you think about it.
Yeah, you say the other that I really get from what you're saying is about being inspired. It was a funny story. I used to work in car hire, and I was leading a branch or running a team. Must have been about 20 or 30 people, if not more. And there was one girl in particular, and I would ask her every morning, "How are you?" And every morning she would say, I'm tired. Every single morning, no matter what, I'm tired. And it got to the point where this was sort of before I really came across Bob and the TIR, etc. I said, you know what, you're banned from saying the word tired. I don't want to hear you say the word tired anymore, because the more you say it, the more tired you get. Yeah. So when I come in the morning time and ask you how you are, I want you to say awesome or great, something like that. And it was a conscious shift that I made myself, because if anybody ever asks me how I am, the answer is awesome. And it's such not an Irish word to say, but so it's something that's completely different. But I had to force myself to say it in order to change how I felt about myself, which is part of that subconscious programming. But anyway, enough about me.
Well, I like that. And it's kind of I think we're all educated and know that, a lot of people hear the word gratitude and the power of gratitude. And being that I taught yoga and meditation, there was a lot of focus on gratitude, but I didn't really understand gratitude to the level that I do now. Well, again, when you focus your mind on gratitude, and this isn't like fluffy. It's not just a theory. It really truly is science. Like when you are focusing on what you're grateful for, it doesn't matter if it's, the fact that I can walk over to my sink and right from the lake get fresh drinking water. I'm very grateful for that. Many people can't do that, right? Or the fact that I have this awesome pen I can write with. But there's always whatever you focus on, it's going to grow. And there's always something to be grateful for. Even in the shittiest situations, there's always something to be grateful for. When you understand that even gratitude, and like you're saying, focusing on the better feeling, I think gratitude's even better, because some days you're not going to feel awesome, and that's okay. Feel the feels, but you can be grateful you woke up and you got a pen, or like you got a glass of water or something. It literally moves the cells in your body to a positive pole. Like your cells move to a positive pole. When you understand the laws, it's 11:11 on my phone right now, but when you understand the laws, it magnetizes to you. That's what the law of attraction, it magnetizes to you more to be grateful for. In the science of getting rich, as Wallace Wattles says, gratitude draws you closer to source supply. So when you're focused on what you're grateful for and that the positive pull or what's working in your life, you bring more of that. But when you wake up and you're focused, your thought energy is focused on the negative, like, yeah, I'm tired, life sucks. This is science. You move the poles in your body to a negative pole and you literally become a poop magnet. You attract all the things you don't want, right? So again, when you start to understand these basic principles, but you can't just hear it once. That's the thing. Your programming is so strong, that genetic environmental programming, it's a repetition of a good idea, and understanding on a deep, deep subconscious level, because that's where your results are coming from. Only then can you change your results, right? So I love that. And that is a shift, right? Just think, if we're all a product of a product, and you're inspired, especially Adrian, around getting children, I realized, again, because in healing, oftentimes parents would bring their kids to me and they'd say, you got to fix my kids, right? And I realized even really quickly in the healing realm, even with this, it was like, it wasn't about fixing kids. They're just a product of, it was getting the parents to lead. So if a child's in an environment where the parents are always saying, like, imagine that woman, if she has children, oh my God, I'm tired and life sucks. Well, you're just programming your little children to be tired, life sucks, nothing ever works. We're all a product of that. So it's not about, our parents did the best they could, but when you know better, you got to do better. And that's what it's about. It's really about betterment. We all have the ability to do better, but it starts with how we're thinking. Thinking moves into feeling. That's law of vibration and the way the subconscious works. And feeling, of course, creates action, and action creates reaction, which is the law of attraction. So it all starts with really programming ourselves for success. But we come here with infinite possibilities, and really we already are success. It's just that all this programming, our parents, the planet, look at media now. There's all this programming. We got to tap back into that. It's almost like a remembering process. Like you said, like a child is born perfect, whole and complete. It's like we got to remember. But I think this is the process, and that's what makes it so perfect, because I also believe that your mess is your message. So it's like whatever you've had to go through, those trials, those tribulations, is where you can support other people in those areas. And that's what, even within our company and with PG Consultants, everybody has a different story. Everybody has gone through different things, but it's like, you got to lead. It's all about that. And then that's how we do get our kids really thinking into results. And I noticed that, I do think we need to bring this. I really think that we're at a time where we're seeing that the systems right now are broken. The school systems, the government. Unless you're completely delusional, some people are, and that's okay, but the systems are not working. We need to teach We need to shift the systems. The school system was created during the industrial age to make you a good little worker. Okay,
Correct.
at one point maybe it worked, but it's time to evolve our consciousness. It's time to teach our children how to think for themselves. It's time to teach our children how to dream and start their own businesses and be, good humans. So there's a lot of opportunities to shift the system, to shift these paradigms, but it only shifts through us. And the more we all start thinking, then of course we're not going to need these systems that are outdated anymore.
Yeah. Wow. The piece that you say there about the schools and the education system, because that's a big part. Obviously, as a father, two young girls who I'm besotted with, and who I believe will be absolutely phenomenal. I really bought them. I'm sure you know Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad Poor Dad. There's a cartoon version of Rich Dad Poor Dad for kids.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a comic book, and tells the exact same story. So I last night I was reading a few pages of it with my 7-year-old, and she's coming up with these questions, things that let's say I don't regret things, okay, but had I known certain things when I was that age, then things could be different now. So my role, as I see it, as an educator, as a parent, is to, as you said, to interrupt that cycle, to be the change, and to educate in a different way of thinking, or just to even help them to think differently. But she was asking me, what's an employee? Is tax? And then trying to explain those things to a 7-year-old. What is tax? And actually, it's very funny, Tara, because I said to her, I says, okay, so imagine you earn €100 or $100, and the government goes and they take, $35 out of that. How does that feel? And she goes, oh, that's okay, because they probably need it too.
Oh my God. Or more, or more.
Or more.
It depends on your tax bracket. I know, again, we're seeing that these systems are outdated, and it's time to teach our children how to think for themselves. And to me, that's what sovereignty is. Sovereignty and which is being a free human, is when you can think for yourself. But I know for me, like Adrian, even studying the laws of mankind, I was like, I know what the legal system is. It's pretty much man-made. It's like, if you and I are going to play Monopoly and you just decide you're the legal system, you're going to be like, you know what, Tara, I know you own those hotels, but I'm going to take them from you and decide that they're my hotels now because I'm the legal system. It's just man-made. They just make it up as they go. Again, we got to get back to living in alignment and harmonizing with law. That's a completely different system than the legal system. And so, I think it's so important that our children learn how to think. And I'm going to get that book for my kids because I know I have the other book, but I love it. Like my kids love cartoons and stuff too. I think that's awesome. But it's like, it's just time for us. That's why it's so painful on the planet right now, because I believe our creator, I just call that creator God. You can call it whatever you want, but I believe our creator is asking us to evolve our consciousness. It's like, come on, humans, you're kind of a little slow here. It's time to evolve the consciousness. So if you do not evolve your consciousness, if you do not declare your sovereignty and start thinking for yourself, you're going to be there's going to be a lot of pain. I think that's the last 3 years, and we're seeing the effects of that now. It's massive, like especially, and it's probably the same where you live, but we never had a tent city. We got 2 tent cities. We got mental health and addiction like 300 times where we live. And we live in a very wealthy kind of touristy community. It's really hit this community hard. It's time, humans. If you do not start thinking for yourself and declare your sovereignty and start thinking in, as Wallace Wattles would say, in a certain way, you're going to be in trouble. And this is where it's like, it's, when you read a lot of old work, it's like, it's true. I mean, only the strong are going to survive. And so it comes down to, it's a choice. But I think as parents, like you're saying, Adrian, we got to do a better job. And the systems, we got to quit blaming the government or the teachers or the schools, they're just doing what they've always done. They're operating out of an old paradigm. It's up to us to lead and start doing something different, you know?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
by the way, if you fit in, I mean, I sent my kids to, it's called Waldorf. So my kids, they learned in a completely different way. I think that's why I was even drawn to this work. You'll be ostracized because humans, we all want to be like each other. And so if you fit in, you're probably doing something wrong too, right? Everybody wants to fit in and be like each other, but it's like we're all like a whole bunch of buffalo running to a cliff. If everybody's running this way, you probably should run the other way. You got to do something different. And that's one thing. I was traveling with the Prophets Conference. So this was Hopi prophets and Mayan grandmothers. And it was kind of around the 2000 and 11, 12, and everything that was going on the planet. And there was a lot of just incredibly wise speakers, and they were just talking about if we didn't do something, and some of the speakers would say we had to plug our children back into the earth. And I remember thinking, isn't that interesting? Because they're all plugged into devices now. They can't even think for themselves. They're like, when you look at kids. And so that was one thing we did with our kids, Adrian, is we just made a decision. Our children would not have devices. We took the TV out of the house, and I did a completely different method. And of course, my kids felt like the most underprivileged kids in the world. And it was so horrible for them. And people would often say, oh, you're poor kids, or they're not going to be as smart. And my children just got cell phones. It is the worst thing I ever did, I swear, because it's almost like I lost them. I mean, I get you can't hold it forever. But what I started doing, and that's where we got to get educated and research, is the people that created these devices, and we want to use them for good, and I'm so grateful. But the people that created them, like Steve Jobs and what's his name from Microsoft, they didn't even give them to their own kids till they were 14. Yeah. That's an indicator, right? Like they created these things, and then we got babies being programmed now by these devices, and parents don't have to. Then the parents are upset that this child is a certain way. Well, I think being a parent, it's a leader. Everybody's leading, but are you a good leader? Like our kids need us to actually lead them, and it's about us learning how to lead ourselves. So I think there's a lot of opportunities here to start thinking and creating new businesses, new systems, better schooling, better medical, everything. There's betterment. There's an opportunity here.
Yeah. An uncle of mine lives down in San Diego in California, and he's in the wellness industry, as he would call it, as opposed to what he calls the normal medical industry is the sick care industry. It's not the wellness industry. So he's all into let's say supplementation to make sure you get the right nutrition, and understanding what actually goes into your body affects how your body is. Because the same way we say all the time, and I just clicked with me because I read it on a podcast the other day, The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale, that you become what you think about, and you also become what you eat. So if you're eating crap all the time, your body turns into crap and gets sick and those sort of things. So it's very, very important always I'm a big believer in healthy body, healthy mind. So exercising, making sure that you eat the right foods has a big impact on how your body feels, which can then have a big impact on the energy that you have and how you can think and what you're able to do.
100%. That's another area that like kind of Tony Robbins goes into too, around physiology. And when you think about it, like, look at most of the food people eat now. I mean, what is it? Something like 80% of the food that people are eating, it actually makes us sick. And I mean, you make people sick, you have a customer for life. So we wonder what, you know what I mean? Like all these disease processes, and yet we're eating things that don't break down and are not natural for us. I have a cousin who's a farmer, and he'd found in one of his old work trucks a cheeseburger. I think it was a year or 2 years later, and it looks exactly like the McDonald's cheeseburger.
Oh, Jesus.
And we're feeding our children this. Like,
Yeah.
so the thing is like, and it's not to shame anyone, but we got to start thinking. We have the ability to think and to do better. And it's all, we're messing around with, again, law, with God. Like, we are meant to eat fresh vegetables out of a garden. This is like the ancestral diet, and getting back to just eating things. I always think, like, even because I didn't mention this, but I am an Ayurvedic coach. So I spent 15 years studying Ayurveda, which is the oldest medical science known to man. And in Ayurveda, it's like, even like the lotions and the perfumes and things, like, if you wouldn't, like I always say, would you eat that? Well, if you wouldn't eat it, don't put it on your body, because your skin is your largest organ. Why would you poison your largest organ? And, I got a 14-year-old girl, and they all love makeup and all this stuff. And I was trying to show her. And again, we got to stop telling our kids what to do, but we can be great educators. And I was showing her, it was like, this perfume had like 50 ingredients. And almost half the ingredients they've proven causes cancer. It's like, why would our system, why would they allow that to even be in there if we know it disrupts their hormones, it causes cancer, it makes them sick? Because you have a lifetime customer. Humans have to be smarter than the system. The systems, let's face it, and leaders are more than aware there's problems. We're more than aware there's problems. I'm more than aware. But we give all our focus to the solution. So we do. It's all about getting the knowledge, the study, the understanding. And then if there's something you're really passionate around, then you got to do something in that area. I think that's why Adrian, like you and I, both love to teach this material, because it really does start with a thought. It just starts with learning how to think, thinking for yourself. And I am that mom. My kids are always laughing because we carpool and there's always kids in our vehicle. And they're like, yeah, my mom, like, because when there's these trends, like there's a trend with all these energy drinks, and they're proving it's making children really sick and having all these problems. And my kids are both like, yeah, oh yeah, mom already sent us some educationals on that. And they share with their friends. But I think it's like, get educated. And it's really simple. Again, it's $1 billion industry, the diet industry, and it actually makes you fatter, and it actually makes you sicker. And now there's like all these, medications. Well, you don't lack a medication in your body. It actually chemically alters things, and long-term, you're going to deal with more problems. Get the insides right. Get back to basics. We got to get back to basics. We got to, get outside more. You mentioned like how I love being on the outside. Like I'm a real believer in earthing, getting your feet in the sand, getting your feet in the earth. What makes us thrive and healthy is actually most of those things don't cost anything.
Yeah.
Right?
I heard that the other day, that the things that we tend to value the most are the things that cost money, and the things that we got for free, like our body, we don't tend to care for at all. So if we had to pay for our body and pay for our mind as soon as we were born, let's say, maybe we'd take better care of it over the course of our life. There's the other Hippocrates, let food be your medicine, let medicine be food. I'm a big believer in that. I went vegan 3+ years ago, and feel great because of it.
I teach conscious eating. Like I was vegan for a while, and it didn't work for me, unfortunately, but my daughter's vegan, but I think it's about conscious eating, right? And even if you're, again, there's these mass factories and farms and the way we treat animals. Well, if an animal's being abused and being tortured and everything's energy, you're eating that energy, and you wonder why you're maybe anxious all the time. So I believe in more, I think it's about getting back to basics, more conscious practices that are more integrity with who we really are. And who we really are is spirit. And so I think that, the answers are really quite simple. It's just humans again, we don't understand the mind. We're not harmonizing with law. And that's all you have to do. Like I always say, Adrian, like take an honest look at your results. Are you getting the results that you want? Are you happy? Are you healthy? Are you wealthy? And the reality is all of us can do better. I can do better. I'm sure you would say you could do better.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
But I'd say most people, if they take a real honest look at the results and they're not lying to themselves, there's some really great work to do. But we got to do that work. Otherwise, we just keep reinforcing the same thing. And I believe personally, right now on this planet, there's no better time to be alive. And there's no better time to make that decision to start leading and to start really thinking from the higher side of your nature. You know, you were talking about Think and Grow Rich earlier, like Napoleon Hill says it's through the higher mental faculties. You know, one of the faculties is our imagination. You know, if you're not happy with your life, what do you really want? Start dreaming up a new dream, a new life, right?
There's a friend of mine who used to we say, I don't know if you say the same thing in Canada. He used to slag me all the time. He used to make fun of me all the time, because as far as he was concerned, I lived in Adrian's world. Yeah. And in Adrian's world, I was able to do whatever it is that I wanted to do. I would encourage everybody to live in that way, because when you do, there's no limits.
Yeah. And I like Adrian's world. And I think like, that's the thing, like what a compliment, because when you look at most people on this planet, I mean, this is just the reality. There's Cooley. He said that 2% of people are thinking, 3% think they're thinking, and 95% of people would rather die than think. You know, I'm still aligning myself. I mean, even after all these years studying this work, I'm still aligning. I'm still, you know, thinking into results. And there's some days where that programming is so strong, you know, that habit nature, it still takes me sideways. And I've always been inspired by Bob, because Bob spent 60 years of his life learning how to think and really think and live from within. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities here. But when you look at that statistic, I mean, statistically, as a human race on this planet, we're not thinking, and we're not evolving the way that I think it's all perfect in the end. I really do. But I think that we're definitely being asked to evolve. We're being asked to raise our consciousness, to raise our awareness. And this is why we're experiencing devastation and hardships. I mean, we live on a planet that right now is fat. There's a lot of talk about fat and disease. It's at an all-time high. Mental health is at an all-time high. Again, the problems are right in front of our face, so we can't deny it. And the opportunity is, we have the opportunity as individuals to really start focusing on the solution. And the solution is not out there, and it's not about changing anybody else. It's about coming inside here. You know, on my success wall, because I'm a feng shui gal, you know, I don't know if you can see it because my thing is mirrored. Oh, it'd be over. Oh yeah, it's over here. I got Mahatma Gandhi, Joan of Arc as well, Marcus Aurelius. But that's why Mahatma Gandhi, he said, like, be the change. And think of like a leader like that. I mean, he took out millions of people. Like, he took out the whole British Army, which was millions, right? And with love. Remember I said another word for law is Lord or love. And so I believe that love is only real and love will win. But I think that it's up to each and every one of us to start leading with law, with love, with the Lord, you know, whatever that looks like to you, spirit, universal consciousness again. So, you know, in the Bhagavad Gita, it says the paths are many. They all lead to one God. So whatever that looks like for you, I think there's opportunities for us, but we really do need to start thinking, because our creator, that's what our creator did. And what separates us from our animal friends is our ability to really think, and betterment is good. I think there's a natural drive within us to do better, to bring more increase. It's even like where I live, is it spring in Ireland right now?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's spring here. So you see this natural desire to grow, right? Even in the spring, the little shoots, they're pushing through. I think it's like us. And I think that's why dissatisfaction is good. I think when you're stuck and you don't feel good and life feels hard, it's because you're not harmonized. It's because you're not growing. And it's natural, it's healthy to grow. And all these other things like disease, mental health, addiction, they're all there to support you and to show you where you're missing the mark. Even in the Bible, to miss the mark, like that's to sin. So we are here to thrive. We are here to experience prosperity and joy and peace. And when we're not, it's because we're walking in our path backwards. And we really need to, again, we need to be in growth mindset. We need to move forward. So I think that this is a really exciting time. I think it's also going to be a very tough time. And it's going to be a really tough time for a lot of people, because if you do not grow, if you do not do something, you will ultimately stay stuck. And over time, this is where we just disintegrate. We die.
Yeah. At the basic law of life, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it's a choice. It's a choice, right? We all get to make that choice.
Yes. That is perhaps one of my most favorite quotes ever. It's from Bob, isn't it?
Yeah.
Change is inevitable. Personal growth is a choice. I love that one. Tara, this has been an absolutely wonderful conversation. I personally have learned so much, and I'm sure that our listeners will have learned an awful lot as well. I'm just conscious of time, because it's over an hour now. Sort of, let's say, final words. We've had an awful lot of what I would call wisdom from you. And I love a bit of love being how to change the world. I'm a big believer in that. What would be your final words to anybody that's listening, let's say they're in that position where you felt yourself, and I felt myself saying, I'll just settle. Yeah. What would be the advice that you would give to them to break free of that? Don't settle. Understand what's inside of you and listen to it. What would you advise somebody to do?
I would say that when you're being nudged, and I do think we get divinely nudged all the time, it's like there's something inside of you that just knows there's just so much more you're capable of. And again, you could be stuck. I call it a hell realm. You could just be stuck in a hell realm and you're not happy. I think that you've got to do something. You've got to take action, some sort of action, because that's what causes the law of attraction. When you start to understand the laws, it's an inside job. Nothing changes outside of you until you change the inside. And, you can have all the training, all the knowledge. At one time, I think I had like 30 certificates and, things all over my wall. The only one I have is to show that I'm actually a consultant now, but I took them all down. You can have all the training in the world, but until you understand, the basics around your mind, how you think, shifting those paradigms, harmonizing with law, you're just someone who has a lot of knowing. That's just a know-it-all. And how is that working? For me, it wasn't working. Actually, if anything, gathering more information and being stuck just kept reinforcing how not good enough I was. And I think that many people feel this way. When you start to study yourself and you recognize that you were made perfect and you were made whole and complete and you're important. Every single person on this planet's like a snowflake. There's nobody else that's like Adrian, and there's going to never be another me again. And there's never going to be another you. That, you're important and you have value. And there's something, I believe that we've come here to learn certain lessons and we've come here to grow together and to really, I do believe that the purpose in living is to serve. But we can only serve from a place of living from within ourselves and taking 100% responsibility. And if there's something that is inspiring you, or a problem you see, maybe you're the solution to that problem. And I do believe that and this is another quote of Bob's, is the only problem and the only solution is you. And I really believe that. I believe it's an inside job. Stop looking outside of you. Stop blaming circumstances, your partner, your kids, your company, whatever it is. If you're not getting the results that you want, if you're just feeling stagnant, again, maybe you're feeling stuck or in a hell round, do something. Maybe you just reach out to Adrian. Maybe you, again, like you're being nudged. I don't know. Maybe it's the company you're working for and you just know there's so much more you could do. Do something. You got to do something, because without action, nothing is going to change. And, you've got to get some basic understandings. And I would say it is simple. There is a way that's really simple. It doesn't have to be so complicated. And everything you've done up until this point is perfect. But there's probably a reason why you've even landed on this podcast. I don't believe in coincidences. I really believe, and this is how I've led in my own life, is when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I really believe that we're all, we're always being divinely guided. Even when I look at my life and I look at times where it was just absolute hell, it was like I was being carried. I was being supported. I was being nudged. I maybe wasn't listening, but there was always a supporting element there. And so we are being nudged. It's just that if we don't take action on it, because you can think about it all you want. I mean, I'm a meditation teacher of many, many years. You can sit there and just be like, good luck. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change in your life and your business till you do something about it. You got to do something. You got to take action. And little bits of action are going to add up, and it's going to strengthen your self-confidence. It's going to strengthen your self-image. We were talking before we jumped on here around the image maker lesson. Your self-image, it's really truly going to make or break you. So you have to have the image of success, the image of prosperity. That image has to be in here. And I studied self-image for years before coming into this material, and finally it clicked. And it really is through the repetition. But find a good mentor, find a good coach, find some material, and don't just leapfrog. Don't go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, because you're just going to be like an older version of me that was like on extreme information overload and looked really intelligent and had all the certificates and all the awards, but I was not getting the results I wanted. That's just a poser. So, and maybe you feel like a poser. I don't feel like a poser anymore. When you're living from inside, it's a good life. It's a really good life. And that's the way that we're meant to live. We're meant to live from inside out, from the heavens down, versus living from the outside in and from the ground up. It truly is success. Everything you desire it's an inside job.
That is awesome. Thank you very, very much for that. We're definitely on the same wavelength, I'd say, Tara, because I resonate very, very much with everything you said. I'm sure it's going to resonate with our listeners. Again, Tara, thank you very much for your generous time today. It's been a great conversation. And if people want to find out more about Tara, where can they find you?
Yeah, so, you could just email me, I guess, at tara@diamondmindconsulting.ca, or you can look me up, just Diamond Mind Consulting on most media platforms. It's not a diamond company, though. You got acres of diamonds in your mind. So it's Diamond Mind, not mine, MIND. And just reach out. Awesome. I'm sure you'll find me. The age of media, that's where we want to be grateful for media, but we're meant to use media for the good. And unfortunately, we're not using media for the good most of the time. We're wasting a lot of time on media. And time is your most precious commodity. So we want to use media to put out wonderful educationals and platforms like this. So, yeah.
Cool. Thanks a million. I'll put your links in the whatever it's called underneath the podcast, so people will be able to find you. Thanks a million for your time, Tara.
Yeah. And I would just encourage anyone, if you've been hopping on Adrian's podcast, and I really appreciate you, Adrian, for doing this again, because especially where there is, and How to Outwit the Devil, Napoleon Hill, he talks about that, where we're at a time where definitely there's a lot of darkness on media. And so this is the light. This is so great that you're doing this. If you're someone that's been hopping on this platform and listening to Adrian, or you're around him, again, just take action and maybe reach out to Adrian and learn more about this incredible way of living. And I can tell you, there is an incredible way of living, and it really, truly does work every time with every single person if you can be coachable. And you definitely have to be coachable. You have to be a good student before you can become a phenomenal leader. And you might be like me, leading in different areas of your life, but you got to ask yourself, are you a good leader? And I know, honestly, when I reflect back, I was not a good leader. I was not a good leader. I was not a good parent. I was not doing anything very good. And from the outside, it looked all pretty and everyone thought I was great. But it wasn't until I started understanding certain principles. Now I'm doing much better. Some days I miss the mark, but I'm doing much better. And so I would just encourage you to reach out to Adrian, because if you're just hopping on here and you're gathering information, you got to take action on some level. And I know that Adrian for sure can help you. And you can reach out to both of us. We can both help you no matter what.
Cool. That's brilliant, Tara. Thank you very, very much. And we'll talk to you later.
Sounds good. Thank you, Adrian.